Mandurah and the southwest coast were hit the hardest. This was Cape Naturalist earlier today as the storm hit.
Overnight, more than 25 reported tornadoes pummeling the plains. Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Wyoming to Minnesota. Tracking the storms in western Oklahoma.
This cleanup effort's going to be massive.
4 miles of the California coastline are now coated in leaked crude. An estimated 21,000 gallons of oil flowed toward the ocean, and strong winds and tides help push it further down the shoreline.
Debris in that mud there. Well, officials confirm more than 60 deaths after a landslide roared into a ravine, but they're not sure how many people, if any, are still missing. This is a part of Colombia that had seen heavy rain for the last several days.
Good evening. Perth and the southwest have been hit by strong winds and heavy rainfall in the first big storm of the year. Properties and boats were damaged, and we're being warned to brace for more wild weather later tonight.
From a warm, sunny week to a sudden change with heavy rain and destructive winds. Mandurah and the southwest coast were hit the hardest. This was Cape Naturalist earlier today as the storm hit. Further north in Bunbury, these yachts were damaged after breaking their moorings at Coombana Bay in strong winds.
They wanted to try to get a crane, but it's too windy for a crane. I think they're on board trying to bail out some of the water.
A yacht race from Fremantle to Bali was postponed with conditions too dangerous. And strong winds ripped the roof off a shed in Mandurah, damaging the house next door.
Well, it was a cracking noise, and then it just smashed into the roof. It broke my aerial, and it broke my dish for the Foxtel, and broke a lot of tiles.
The conditions are the result of a strong cold front sweeping up the southwest coast. Rottnest was lashed by wind gusts of 111 kilometres an hour. Cape Leeuwin had 100 k's an hour. Mandurah recorded 87 kilometres an hour, and at Perth Airport 74. Cape Naturalist recorded the most rainfall, 75 millimetres in 24 hours. 71 millimetres fell in Vass. Rottnest recorded 25, Swanbourne 20, and Perth 14. But the rain was welcome in some parts, up to 10 millimetres dumped on farming districts in the Wheat Belt and Great Southern. After easing this afternoon, the wet and stormy weather will pick up again tonight, with severe conditions expected into tomorrow. Flood warnings remain in place throughout the southwest.
Also, the winds associated with this system have meant tides are higher than normal. We expect those conditions down south to continue through tomorrow.
Main Roads is warning people to watch for slippery roads with heavy rain creating dangerous driving conditions. There have also been wires down today and power blackouts for some customers in our southern suburbs.
And Lee Steele is on the South Perth foreshore for us this evening. Lee, it's calmer, but expecting to get worse tonight.
That's right, Lee, and there'll be a low pressure system that will hit Perth probably at around 10 or 11 o'clock tonight, and the southwest a little earlier at around 7 or 8. Now that'll probably bring about 50 millimetres of rain to the southwest and around 30 millimetres of rain to Perth. So pretty much what we've just seen in the last 24 hours. Temperature-wise, it will be cold again. It was a top of 26 degrees yesterday in Perth, and we had a max of 16 today, and that was at 6 a.m. So a temperature difference there of 10 degrees. Like I said, it will be cold tomorrow, and that wild weather probably won't ease until tomorrow afternoon and into Monday the week.
the big weather story this morning is in the Central Plains, where severe weather has been on the march. More than 25 tornadoes reported so far this weekend, and 30 million Americans are in the crosshairs today as that system moves east.
And Rob has been out chasing the storms with one of the experts from the Storm Prediction Center. And Rob joins us now from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, with the very latest. Hey, Rob, good morning.
Good morning, Dan. The storms just rolled through here. Significant damage in this neighborhood. We can't get into the areas where the homes were damaged because of trees this size blocking the roadways and taking down power lines. This is a town just outside of Tulsa and another town about 30 miles north and east of here. 10 homes damaged, 2 completely demolished. This was a widespread tornado outbreak. Oklahoma was not alone. Overnight, more than 25 reported tornadoes pummeling the plains. Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Wyoming to Minnesota. Tracking the storms in western Oklahoma. This is the cell we've been tracking, a magnificent supercell. That supercell would drop a large tornado, a cone of powerful winds destroying this home near Elmer.
Got my wife and got her belongings and went in the shower. You could hear the hail hitting the floor outside our bathroom door.
Passing through a cow pasture in another part of the small Oklahoma town. We got caught in the storm. Listen to that hail hit the roof. We followed the cell all the way to Chickasha. You could hear the tornado sirens going off. A rain-wrapped tornado right there heading northeast. And more storms would fire further south. This tornado hitting Geronimo. Spotting this one tearing through Tipton. And heavy rain causing flash flooding in Wichita. Just an unbelievable day and night, frightening at times for sure. Now the storms have moved a little bit to the east. Today is going to be another turbulent one, but let's break down the storm reports. We had over 170 of them. We mentioned the tornadoes, huge hail, in some cases baseball-sized hail, and rainfall is going to be an issue too. And we're seeing some heavy rain right now move across North Texas where they do not need it at all. The severe risk today is going to be across Minnesota, where they already had a handful of tornadoes doing damage yesterday. So they could get hit 2 days in a row. And then the heavy rain is going to be a problem too, especially across the areas that got all that heavy rain and flooding earlier this week. So we'll get some calmer weather, I think, later this week, but another day today where it's going to be rough across the central U.S.
Some of the first images of this weekend's storm damage came from News Chopper 9. Today we launched to get a bird's eye view.
A lot of damage to this building right here, and it looks like this is pretty much where the tornado first touched down.
From the sky, Johnny Rollins follows the tornado's path through Sibley.
And it threw some pretty big stuff out into that field.
A mile southwest of town, shingles plucked off roofs, trees snapped like toothpicks.
Obvious tornado damage, not straight line winds.
Closer to town,
as the tornado was coming out of Sibley, taking down power poles. We're just north of the river now.
Down the road, dangerous conditions hours after the storm passes. Watch this driver surrounded by floodwaters. Closer to Oric,
here's a mobile home that's completely gone.
The tour of nature's destruction ends here. A roof peeled back from a home. The National Weather Service now says this tornado was an EF2.
Rescuers in Northwest Columbia combing for anyone who may have been trapped by this river of mud. You see all the debris in that mud there. Well, officials confirm more than 60 deaths after a landslide roared into a ravine, but they're not sure how many people, if any, are still missing. This is a part of Columbia that had seen heavy rain for the last several days. Area roughly about 60 miles to the south of Medellin, and it looks like more rain on the way. Of course, this is the rainy season, and you see images like this of the landslide in the Andes Mountains. Everything just comes down, orographic lift. It's just a terrible setup that happens there.
Look at that. And just having
poor structure.
Yeah, you can just see the setup there. I mean, sitting in that valley.
Right.
Oh, awful.
Devastating.
Check out the lightning that is streaking across the sky in the image right there, and know this, that lightning strikes the earth 4 million times a day. But what are the mechanics of thunder generation? How do we get from lightning to the sound of thunder, and how does that all happen? Well, for the first time ever, scientists think they now know what thunder looks like. That's because Dr. Maher Daye from the Southwest Research Institute has joined us via Skype to explain. Hey, Dr. Daye, walk us through this for me, please, sir. When you captured the images, tell us what you learned.
Well, Sam, actually, in the beginning, when we were installing the equipment and everything, we had no clue that we would be successful in imaging the acoustic signature of a lightning strike or not. But then we were really amazed that this is indeed possible. So what we did, in order to have an image of thunder, you would need basically a giant ear. You would want amplification in a specific direction along the length of the lightning channel.
Yeah.
So we designed...
So it's a giant ear, so kind of designing a giant ear so you could see the entire ripple of sound through the thunder channel, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So the way we hear thunder is not just a loud boom, kind of an explosion type of thing that's just coming from the lightning strike, but rather you hear some kind of a cracking sound.
Yeah, it's like a crackle.
Exactly. So the question that we were seeking after is, what is the source of the crackle that we hear? Why we just don't hear just one loud explosion, which, as we understand it, is basically you are heating air to very high temperatures during very short time periods, which creates the shock wave. So you would expect just hearing one loud sound.
Yeah.
But instead we hear these crackings that we were trying to investigate. And in order to do this kind of thing, we thought that if we have some camera that can show us where the sound is coming from along the lightning channel. And to do this, we needed two things. First of all, the instrument, the giant ear, and we wanted to know where the lightning strike actually is. And the
so
problem
you kind of had
here
to create a channel for the lightning as well. So you had to set up all your equipment. We're showing some of your video, and we're showing how you created the channel for lightning by shooting into the sky right there. And then you see the flashes, and you've got the giant ear. So what I've seen when lightning slows down is it almost looks like several ripples or several waves. Is that where the crackling sound comes from?
Yes. So actually, these are what we call return strokes. So for instance, if you look at a lightning event, Sam, from a certain distance, you do not see just one spark that's going on and off, right? You would see it kind of flashing, like on, off, on, off, on, off. These are called return strokes. So basically, the electric charges, as they are being discharged during a lightning event, you do not have just one single
but multiple
discharge.
Flashes, right. So that lets us know why we don't hear just like one boom, but we start to see a crackle. It's fascinating. Yes. It's just the beginning of this research. And Dr. Maher Daye, thank you so much for being with us to kind of explain it, because I'll tell you, it's a complicated thing to try to explain something that we see in the flash of an eye like that.
A huge brush fire in Hawaii has forced dozens of people to flee their homes. The blaze flared up Monday afternoon in Makakilo, just outside of Honolulu. High winds helped fuel the flames, which threatened several hillside homes downwind from the fire. About 50 people spent the night in a local shelter. A portion of the freeway was shut down as crews battled the blaze, but it has since reopened. The fire has burned some 60 acres so far, but firefighters say it's now fully contained. Still no word on what sparked the blaze. I'm Matt Sampson, the Weather Channel.
Take a look at this. Thousands of gallons of water sprayed onto the street after an old water line snapped early this morning. It left a 6-foot wide sinkhole in the middle of the road. 10 News reporter Jill Little reveals other problems that crews found in the hole that made their jobs a little harder.
Well, you can certainly see and hear these guys fixing this sinkhole here in Valley Center. Here's the culprit, this 3-inch service line. When it exploded, it created this sinkhole behind me here. Now when crews got out here, they decided to take a look around and they found 3 other pipes they could fix while they were out here. They're packing it in tight. Thousands of pounds of dirt, meant to fill the hole left in this Valley Center road after a relatively small 3-inch service tap finally gave way.
We have pipelines that are approaching 60 years old.
And something that old is bound to give eventually. It closed half this road for most of the morning and cut off water to 40 customers in the Valley Center Municipal Water District.
It's not an easy job.
Gary Arant is the district's general manager. He says once crews got in the hole and turned the water off, they found 3 more service taps, these service taps, that could have snapped at any time.
So while we're there, let's fix it right, and that way we don't have to come back.
They lost about 50,000 gallons before service was restored Tuesday morning. Water insiders call this lost water, quote, unaccounted for water. It's water lost through leaks or breaks and never makes it to the end of the pipe. Each water district tracks it. The state wants to keep this unaccounted for water to under 10%. Arant says Valley Center is well below at 4%.
And that's because we have a very active maintenance program and leak detection program. And when we find leaks, we fix them.
Fixes that will hopefully keep breaks like this from happening in the future. In Valley Center, Joe Little, 10 News.
Unbelievable. Well, we check the unaccounted for water at our biggest water districts as well. San Diego says it only loses 5.4% of its water to leaks. Helix says they're at 2.4%.
The reported tornadoes hitting just before we came on this evening, more than 8 reported twisters already. Just take a look at some of the video coming in. This is from the town of Giddings, Texas, 50 miles east of Austin. The wind's whipping, you can see the debris in the air, and millions on alert tonight across several states for more tornadoes. And look at this, a dangerous commute home outside Shreveport, Louisiana. The flooding has turned deadly. And this funnel cloud spotted in San Antonio. Chief Meteorologist Ginger Z with the new track at this hour, but first ABC's Clayton Sandell with the extraordinary images coming in right now.
Tonight, ominous clouds over Oklahoma.
It's trying to pull itself together and make one large tornado.
At least 8 tornadoes reported between there and Texas. Debris flying near Austin. This one near San Antonio.
Holy sh**, that thing is big.
Golf ball-sized hail put a few dents in cars and covered roads near Pecos. In 24 hours, San Angelo got the most rain it's seen in 35 years. More than 20 drivers trapped in sinking cars.
Dispatch, this vehicle is completely under the water.
It was waist-high in Louisiana thanks to record rain.
I have never seen this much rain. I've been in Shreveport for 32 years.
In Ruston, Louisiana, where an 11-year-old boy drowned Monday, another boy, just 7 years old, survived, clinging to a tree before help arrived. Colorado is also getting a drenching.
Here in downtown Denver, the water is rising too. This is where the South Platte River and Cherry Creek come together. You can see they have totally overflowed their banks. Normally, it looks like this.
And in the Rockies, a snowstorm just a month away from summer.
And David, the river here is now flowing at 10 times its normal rate. Here in Colorado, we also have flood watches in effect through the weekend. David?
All right, Clayton, thank you. This is going to be a dangerous night ahead, and Ginger gets us right to the track.
The storms are firing still right now. From Oklahoma City to Wichita Falls, that is the target area. The tornado watch in effect this evening. And just like Clayton said, it is not just the severe weather, the chance for tornadoes tonight, the damaging winds, and yes, tornadoes, because we've already seen 11 reported of the 28 storm reports. That's a lot. Flash flood watches, the other big concern. From Wichita, Kansas, down to Abilene, Texas. Lots of rain, 2 to 3 inches, if not a half a foot in some local spots.
Seven is on your side now with health matters and a confirmed case of measles in Fairfax County. Health workers are tracing the patient's steps now to warn anyone who may have had contact. Jay Court is live with details. Jay?
Allison, this of course has public officials concerned because measles is of course very contagious and it can be deadly. According to Fairfax County and D.C. health officials, the person who had measles and is no longer contagious had recently traveled internationally. Health officials say this adult, between May 10th and May 16th, went to a number of highly populated places in the D.C. region, including Embassy Suites at 900 10th Street Northwest, the IFC building at 2121 Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest, the Shelby Apartments, 6200 North Kings Highway in Alexandria, multiple locations on the Inova Fairfax Medical Campus, including the emergency room and the North Tower, along with the nearby Woodburn Medical Park. If you went to any of these locations and come down with symptoms associated with measles, fever-like symptoms with a rash, you are being encouraged to review your vaccination records and contact a medical professional. Now, to determine your potential risk for measles in this particular case, we have an article, a link at WJLA.com. It's going to give you some more precise times as to when health officials believe that this person who was contagious was at the locations that we mentioned in our story. Reporting live in Falls Church, Jay Korf, ABC 7 News.
Get out the way! Protesters start the work week early, chants ringing. Flanked by police bike patrols, they walk to the Port of Seattle's Terminal 5.
There is only one solution! Revolution! Revolution!
That's where Shell Oil's huge drilling rig, the Polar Pioneer, is moored, being prepped for oil exploration off the coast of Alaska. Protesters want to stop that work.
And we need to stop it for the generations to come. If we do not stop this today, we will be extinct, like so many species already are.
Take your friggin' mix and move them from our port.
Plenty of music and dancing keep the mood light here, but the pushback against Shell is happening in other, less cheerful arenas as well.
These are complicated vessels, and we don't have a high level of confidence that they know what they're doing.
The water quality watchdog group Puget Soundkeeper Alliance has challenged the contract process in court, saying more environmental review is required.
They have to conduct an environmental review anytime they change the use of a shoreline, and they skipped that process and just went ahead and negotiated the lease essentially in secret.
The drilling rig drew a huge crowd of kayaktivists out onto the water this weekend and has also drawn criticism from city government. The planning department and mayor have ruled Shell and Foss Maritime, the company doing the work, don't have the right permits and have to reapply. Shell and Foss believe their contract is valid, have appealed the ruling, and are pushing forward. But the high-profile political squabble has other port customers questioning their own deals.
It creates a lot of uncertainty about what is the future of the port going to be. Is the next thing going to be to stop automobile exports and imports, or is it going to be to stop garments or shoes that are being imported here because you don't like where they're made or how they're made?
Carbon footprint, that's using 4 Earth's worth. While the legal and regulatory battles play out, protests like this are likely to continue.
And we're going to put a message out to the planet that we need to take care of ourselves.
How long are you prepared to stay today?
As long as we have to.
Tonight?
Yes.
Tomorrow?
I got 2 depends on. If I can't feed, we're going to do it.
A Foss spokesman tells us work has not been interrupted by the demonstrations as Shell continues to stock the Polar Pioneer with supplies for Arctic oil exploration. Alan Schaffler, Al Jazeera, Seattle.
President Obama is making it harder this morning for police departments to get some surplus military equipment. The White House is banning distribution of certain gear like grenade launchers and bayonets to local law enforcement agencies. Major Garrett is at the White House with the president's reason for the ban. Major, good morning.
Good morning. President Obama has stopped Pentagon shipments of some battlefield-ready military gear to local police departments, but most military surplus shipments will continue to flow. However, there will be new rules requiring more public awareness, which could trigger more public debate. Unrest in Ferguson, Missouri last summer acquainted Americans with an unsettling and largely unknown reality. Many police departments have intimidating military vehicles and gear. All of it shipped at no charge from Pentagon surplus. In Camden, New Jersey, a city successfully fighting systemic violent crime, President Obama announced some military equipment will now stay in Pentagon storage.
We've seen how militarized gear can sometimes give people a feeling like there's an occupying force as opposed to a force that's part of the community that's protecting them and serving them. Can alienate and intimidate local residents and send the wrong message.
Banned equipment includes tank-treaded personnel carriers, grenade launchers, and bayonets. But police departments can still receive mine-resistant personnel carriers of the kind used to quell recent unrest in Baltimore. And local departments can also request and receive long-range firearms, night vision goggles, and riot shields. The president traveled to Camden to highlight lower crime rates that he said are in part the result of better community-oriented policing. Since 2012, the rate of violent crime in Camden has dropped 23%, and its murder rate has been cut in half.
We know these problems are solvable. We know that we're not lacking for answers. We're just lacking political will.
Republican Governor Chris Christie worked with local and state Democrats to refocus Camden's crime-fighting efforts.
It's a joint thing, and if the president wants to hop on board and say he wants to be part of it now, great.
Police reform advocates called the president's moves insignificant and urged the administration to confront the much more complicated task of discriminatory policing. As for those surplus military vehicles, weapons, and gear, police departments will now have to make their requests public, train their officers in their use, and keep detailed records once that surplus gear arrives.
Show you this because just as evening was falling, Mineral Wells, you're looking at Mineral Wells, Texas, and the storm clouds just kind of rolled in. Severe storms kicked up, and we could have a few. Right now, the reports are up into 2 tornadoes in the area last night. And because darkness fell so quickly, we haven't been able to get in and see a lot of the damage, although authorities have been there and have certainly been working on it all night long. So the First Baptist Church, like many buildings in the downtown area, got some serious damage there. Mineral Wells Police Headquarters also taking a hit in these storms. So let's check in this morning. Police Sergeant Caleb Randall joins us on the phone this morning. Sergeant Randall, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for asking. Let's talk about the folks in your town, though. I know in our first look into that area, even in the cover of night, we were saying that there weren't any injuries, and that was a good news. Are we still at that point? No injuries? Everybody accounted for?
Yes, sir. No injuries at all.
That's fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about the damage, though. What have you seen as you guys have moved through your community?
So far, all the damage was concentrated to downtown, to the commercial buildings, some churches, actually 2 churches, a few buildings.
What did it last night? What are people saying that it felt like as the storms moved through? And did they get plenty of warning on these storms?
Yeah, the warning went off. The storm sirens went off. I wasn't working at the time. I can hear them going off. I got my family to safety.
Good.
As soon as I got my family to safety, I actually came into work to help out, along with multi-agencies helped out in this. But it was pretty crazy there for a little while.
Yeah, and things have calmed down this morning. As daylight comes up, what do you guys expect will be your first efforts to clean up? What part of town?
Right now, they pretty much got everything cleaned up, the main part of town, because it did hit in the central part of town, which is located on Oak and 180.
Yeah.
All that part is cleaned up. All the lights are back working again. All the electricity's back on. So I think just the northwest part of town, Northwest 4th Avenue, is the last part right now that they're cleaning up right now.
All right, Sergeant Randall, thank you so much for joining us this morning with just an update on what's going on.
This morning, a big oil spill near Santa Barbara is threatening wildlife. A pipeline ruptured Tuesday afternoon. Initial reports say at least 500 barrels of crude oil leaked along the coast and into the Pacific Ocean. Ben Tracy is at Refugio State Beach in Goleta, where the cleanup is underway. Ben, good morning.
Nora, good morning. The view down here at sea level this morning is not so pretty, and that is because there is sand, there is oil all over the sand here, and also oil all over these rocks. Now, the pipeline that caused all of this has been shut off. but the cleanup and recovery is just beginning.
This cleanup effort's going to be massive.
4 miles of the California coastline are now coated in leaked crude. An estimated 21,000 gallons of oil flowed toward the ocean, and strong winds and tides help push it further down the shoreline.
We're going to look for the best way, the most environmentally friendly way to mitigate the oil spill and get the beach back to its pristine condition.
This beach up the coast from Santa Barbara is now closed. Campers in the area were forced to evacuate.
Just a few hours ago it was a beautiful beach, and now it's a mess.
Meanwhile, 2 oil spill response vessels are skimming the water and working to save area wildlife.
2 of them!
Helicopters were trying to scare away these whales swimming dangerously close to the slick.
You can see where it came out of the ground right there.
Plains All-American Pipeline owns the ruptured pipe.
Plains deeply regrets this release has occurred and is making every effort to limit its environmental impact.
Santa Barbara was the site of the 3rd largest oil spill in American history. Back in 1969, a blowout at an offshore oil rig sent 4.2 million gallons into the water, 200 times the area of Tuesday's spill, which couldn't have come at a more inconvenient time for local businesses and vacationers.
We're coming up on Memorial Day weekend. I can't imagine this cleanup effort being done before that weekend.
Now, later this morning, the Coast Guard is going to go up and survey this oil slick. They say it could move 2 to 4 miles south. Meanwhile, cleanup contractors will determine how much oil has been spilled and how much the company involved will have to pay. Gail?